Alright, hello and welcome to part 6 and the finale of what if female deku was albedo. Now, I'd like to thank you all for waiting so long, because I realized how much of a lazy guy I've been becoming with my what ifs. So, for those of you who haven't been on the channel for a very long time, albedo was one of the first what ifs I did. Apollyon was the second one. And since Apollyon had already finished, I decided I would give a lot of you closure and finish off the series. And this has been one of the oldest series on my channel, and it will be missed once it's done. Anyway, continuing forward, we were about to get to the 4th training camp arc, if I remember correctly. Now then, we shall continue. I think her name was Izumi. Yeah, it was Izumi. Izumi and Class 1A would be making their way to the training camp. As they would make their way there, as they would then encounter the wild pussycats. As Izumi would realize what was about to happen, as she'd immediately grab a Momo, as she would get Momo behind her, as I think, give me a minute, sorry about that, as Mandalay would begin to move the earth, as Izumi would raise up the wall of Jericho, which would block all of the incoming dirt from hitting her and Momo, but hit everybody else, sending them off the cliff. As Izumi would lower the wall, as she'd tell Momo that we need to run now, as albedo would spread her wings and begin to fly as Momo. I believe I made Momo the successor of One for All. I'm sorry if all my details are a bit fuzzy, I don't remember this what if that well. As they would both begin to run, with albedo and Momo. Albedo helping Momo and the rest of Class 1A on their way there, as they would basically nearly collapse at the campsite, as Pixie Bob and Mandalay would basically get them to do the activity as they did in canon. As Izumi would notice Kota, as she'd say, "Oh, why, hello there, little guy. I'm Izumi Yaoyorozu from Class 1A. Yeah, the hero course, nice to meet you." As Kota would walk off, as they'd say that he doesn't talk to hero wannabes, as he would then walk off. As we'll then get to the bath scene. Now, the onsen scene. Now, I'm not sure if this is canon, but I'm going to say this. Izumi has like a marking on her pelvis area, which is a effect from her quirk. Now, Momo has seen it before because, again, they're sisters. So Momo and Izumi knows what it means, and so I'll tell you what it is. Basically, if you guys remember correctly, her quirk is called Succubus. And the ship for this series was Midnight. So the most logical way I could get this to work, and for Izumi to actually have a kid, and I'm pretty sure this is canon, but admit it's that if this mark is active, and Izumi is wanting a kid, this mark will basically produce a kid by taking some of the DNA from both parties, which would produce a child. Now, I'm not sure if this is actually canon to albedo or succubuses in general, but I'm going to say this works. This is how her quirk works. As Mineta would begin to climb the wall like it did in canon, as just as he reaches the top of the wall, An axe comes flying up to the top of the wall and hits where Mineta's hand was about to go. As Mineta would begin to panic, as Koda would then push him off the wall as he'd fall back. As Mina and the rest of the girls would thank both Izumi and Koda. With Koda falling into the same area they did in canon, it falls into the girls' area. As Izumi quickly spreads her wings, flies up and grabs him, while wrapping a towel around her at the same time. As she would then take Koda to Mandalay, as she would basically explain how Koda's parents were killed by a villain, and that he didn't really understand what people were saying. She basically says the same thing as she did in canon. Like, I don't really get why people said that the Warhorse hero's sacrifice was heroic. Like, I get, like, they protected people, but you can't just say that their sacrifice didn't go in vain. I mean, a kid lost their parents. You can't just say that to them. I mean, you can wait till they're older and then basically explain that. Like, I'm sorry for getting a bit angry. It's just I find it absolutely infuriating people say that. There are a lot of flaws with the My Hero Academia world. Anyway, continuing. As we'll then get to the League of Villains attack. With Izumi immediately going to Muscular, and she does have her armor with her, as she'd fly up to where Koda was in her armor. As Muscular was about to throw a punch, Izumi would stop it and redirect the damage to the liquid layer, which causes it to ripple a bit. Because remember, it's made out of liquid. As Muscular would say, "Oh, so you're that brat who took out the hero killer, aren't you? Well, I guess it'll be fun to fight you then." As he would then throw a punch, as Izumi would pick up Koda and evade it. As she would then summon her axe, as she would tell Koda to run. With him proceeding to run away, as Izumi would fight Muscular. As this fight would go on for a few hours, with Izumi finally getting the upper hand on Muscular and punching him in the face, knocking him out. As she would use an imprisonment ability to keep him from moving. As the rest of the stuff goes as in canon, with not only Bakugo being captured, but Izumi is also captured as well by Gentle Criminal. No, not Gentle Criminal. It was Mr. Compressed, sorry. I keep forgetting, sometimes I forget villain names. Anyways, continuing. As Izumi would wake up, as the heroes would begin to come up with a rescue operation for Izumi and Bakugo. As the League of Villains are trying to convince them to join them. As Izumi would respond with, I don't know, can you divide it by 0? You know, if you answer that, then that's the answer to my question. As Shigaraki would get infuriated, as Bakugo would basically get out the same way he did in canon, with Izumi basically tearing off the getting off the seat. As All Might busts through the wall, as he did in canon, as the fight with the League of Villains, Izumi and Bakugo are teleported away the same way in canon. As Izumi and Bakugo are standing in front of All for One. As All Might would. They have a rescue mission on for Izumi and Bakugo. As the plan would go in canon, except replace Midoriya with Momo in it. As Kirishima would hold out his hand and yell, "Come on," to Bakugo, Izumi would basically grab Bakugo by the collar and yeet him out over to them. As she would then take her fist and slam it into the ground, causing it to shatter, as she would then fly off, as the shattered ground would destabilize the villains, causing some of them to fall over, except for All For One. As All For One would use the forcible quirk activation on Kurogiri to get him out of there, get the League of Villains out of there, yada yada yada. Fight goes as it does in canon, with All Might coming out victorious. As All Might would then give a speech on basically does the same thing as in canon, telling Momo that she is next. Now, time for the provisional license exam arc. That goes about the same as it does in canon. Anyway, continuing. Okay, I'm joking. I'm going to actually explain it this time instead of just saying it goes as it did in canon. Basically, Izumi's fighting off the people who are trying to get her out by basically hitting the balls back with her axe, like a bat, and using Wall of Jericho whenever she can, and flying off. As she would then begin to get away from everybody else, as she would win that section, and then rescue. She basically does the same thing as in canon. Then we get to the fight with Gang Orca. That goes a bit different, with Izumi and Momo teaming up on Muscular and beating him with Momo launching a Detroit Smash at Gang Orca, and Izumi basically sending a roundhouse kicking Gang Orca in the head. At the same time as Momo uses a Detroit Smash on Gang Orca's stomach, which sends Gang Orca flying off and spinning as he'd land a little distance away from Momo and Izumi, as the timer would go off, signifying that they had won. Now, the fight Bakugo has goes same as in canon, with Momo replacing Deku. Alright, now we get on to the Overhaul Arc. This is very exhausting for me because I just recorded the Gargantuan Leviathan What If, and that will be coming out sometime soon. Anyway, I'm continuing. Izumi goes with Momo and Mirio to Sir Night-Eye, as Momo goes through the same test as Deku did in canon, with Sir Night-Eye basically giving her the thumbs up to intern with his agency. As they then run into Eri, off Mirio, Momo, and Izumi in her hero costume, as they would encounter Overhaul with Izumi and Momo having their guard up because they can basically sense something bad coming from Overhaul. As they would do the same thing as in canon, basically walk with Overhaul down the dark alleyway, and then Eri sees Overhaul taking off his glove, as she'd panic and run towards him, as they would then begin the rescue operation, with Mirio losing his quirk like in canon, and Izumi and Momo basically breaking through the wall to rescue Eri. as Izumi and Momo would work in tandem together to defeat Overhaul, with Overhaul launching his spikes and Izumi raising the wall of Jericho, as she would throw Momo into the air, with Momo using her creation quirk and One for All infused to make a very strong bat, as this would hit Overhaul in the side of the head, causing him to be disorientated a bit, as Izumi would run towards Mirio and Eri, as Overhaul would send spikes towards Izumi, which would hit her, but she redirects the damage to the skin. I think it was the skin tight she redirects it to the armor, to all three layers, as it evenly distributes. As Izumi then shatters the spikes with her axe, as she then flies Mirio and Eri out from where they were, as Izumi places them both down, as Overhaul then merges with his giant minion to become that giant thing that deku for in canon, with Momo and Izumi working together to take Overhaul out, as Izumi would hand Momo her axe in the final hit, as Momo would basically find this out, as Momo would basically overload Izumi's axe with One for All, as when the attack landed, now it's sort of like a side slash at the abdomen area of Overhaul's giant thing, as it would basically split in half, as Overhaul would have been knocked, as Izumi would then kick Overhaul on the top of his head, basically sending him crashing down, knocking him unconscious, as Overhaul is then arrested. Then the school festival thing that happens as it does in canon, and now we shall get to their future. Now, I'm not going to be covering any of the events in the manga or current season 5 because I haven't seen it yet. But we'll get to the future, where Izumi and Midnight are married, and Izumi's currently 20, and Midnight's probably in her 40s right now, as Izumi and Midnight have two children. One's a boy and one is a girl, with Izumi basically telling stories of her childhood, like when she was a student at UA, as Momo would visit from time to time, and this has been confirmed canon, I think, as Momo and Jiro would visit from time to time, since they're her kids' Izumi's kids' aunts. As they would visit from time to time, and eventually Izumi and Momo would rise through the ranks, as with Momo being the number 1 hero, and Izumi being the number 2 hero. With everybody basically being happy with their lives, as this is the end of Albedo Deku. Now, I do hope you guys enjoyed this. I didn't expect to feel so emotional finishing this What If. It's just that this has been like, God, I'm actually tearing up. This is a What If that has been going on for such a long time, and I didn't really think I'd be ending this. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll probably release Gargantuan Leviathan later on this month, or whenever I reach a milestone. So I do hope you all enjoyed this, and for those of you who've been with me for a long time, starting with this What If, thank you for following me on this journey, and I will see you all next time. Ta-ta.